Hello, I'm Clayton, the Assistant Director at the Thomas Crane Public Library, talking to you from my home to yours, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me today. I am joined by Julie Sullivan with the Quincy Natural Resources Department. Julie, thanks for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good, as well as can be considered in these crazy times we're living through. We
Indeed.
are celebrating the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, which it's kind of incredible that people have been recognizing Earth Day for 50 years. One of the things you and I were talking about how to, what are we going to do? We were going to have all sorts of things in the library. And I was talking with some other folks. I was talking with Sally Owen and some other people about how we can recognize this, really momentous day. And then that all got scrambled by the quarantine and by staying at home and staying safe. But that doesn't mean that the natural resources in Quincy are not still incredibly dramatic. I know you and I were just talking a little bit ago about some great hiking that's still possible to do and to appreciate the natural space that is in Quincy. And that's you're new with the Natural Resources Department, and one of your main responsibilities, as I understand it, is to help us make sure that we're doing our best job to take care of our natural resources and appreciate them for a long time. But I don't mean to paraphrase you. Why don't you tell me about, why, what you think is special about Quincy or your role in helping us appreciate it?
Yeah, sure. So I think you were spot on with that. Not only is it my mission to kind of engage the citizenry of Quincy and kind of meeting the common goal of sustaining their community for the long run, but it's really about kind of protecting these amazing natural resources that are in Quincy. And I've never been anywhere else, honestly, and this isn't just being dramatic, like that has the variety of natural resources that Quincy has. Like we were kind of talking about naming this special From Mountains to Sea, which sounds super dramatic, but it's not even dramatic at all because Quincy literally has mountains and sea. Granted, the Blue Hills may not be mountains to some people, but to have kind of that range of natural resources from the coast to the conservation areas inland is pretty special. So I'm really excited to kind of have the opportunity to provide management for some of these resources and make sure that they're preserved for many future generations of Quincy residents to come.
Well, this is certainly a really special community to live in and a really incredible, spot on the planet to be. And I know that we have some photos that you got from the Quincy Daily Photo blog that we're going to share with people to help us celebrate the mountains, some of the examples of the amazing landscapes that we have in the city. So shall we jump into the photos and share them with folks, talk about them a little bit?
And I just want to give a huge thank you to Deborah Barrett from Quincy Daily Photo, who did give me permission to use her photos for this.
The city is coming together in so many ways to support each other in this time. It's really awesome. So that's great that she was able to give you and I think she's really excited to share her photos. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And she takes some beautiful ones. I was kind of joking and telling her that I'm not a great photographer and the only pictures I have are just kind of, not presenting the natural resources in the best light ever, such as this photo. I think this was a beach off of Turn Road somewhere, and it's just really nice. And I thought it would be a good one to kind of start with, but we have a bunch to go through, so we can kind of click through those as we talk here.
So where was this photo taken? That looks familiar, but...
I think this is Howe's Neck here from
the neck. Yeah.
the street. Yes, the neck. Lots of beautiful sights to see on the neck. They've got a huge concentration of the city's salt marshes, which I guess this would be a great segue to kind of talk about salt marshes and the value that they provide to Quincy and the world in general. So a fun fact about salt marshes is that they actually provide more carbon sequestration than any other natural resource. And when I say that, I mean in comparison to a forest, just a pasture, any kind of, manifestation that you could imagine nature taking. Salt marshes store more carbon than any of that because the water preserves all of the organic matter that's in a marsh. That's why they're so squishy and they have all that marsh grass. That's actually just kind of built up organic matter. So when it's in a marsh, that carbon is kind of preserved instead of just maybe a leaf out on the ground that just breaks down somewhere and releases all of its carbon. So it's really important that we preserve these marshes, and there's a lot of wildlife that lives there too that's kind of unique because it lives in a zone between the fresh water and the salt water.
That's probably why they smell so much when it's low tide, because you have all the decomposing carbon and other carbon-based life. But that's really the smell of, soaking up and preserving our air and help. That's the natural cycle.
Exactly.
Because I definitely know it's one thing to look at these photos, but one thing that we're missing right now is the feel of the air and the smell coming off of some of the muck. But I know that like the clammers who love to go out here in the salt marshes and these brackish zones, really, there's life that this is where it really thrives. So
absolutely. Yeah, I wish that this had smell-o-vision, because just nothing like the fresh air coming off a marsh.
Nope, I agree with that.
Ooh, here's one. I forget what area this was in, but
we may be grateful today not to be exposed to the weather there. That looks pretty cold.
Yeah, pretty cold. But also, it's like, is this Antarctica or Quincy? It's
Quincy. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. There. Now we can relax. This looks a little more conducive to. Wow.
Yep, Wally Beach, everyone's favorite. I can't really say enough about Wollaston Beach. I personally love it. I run up and down it all the time after I get out of work. It's amazing. View of Boston is really a draw to a lot of people. I usually see a lot of people out and about on Wollaston Beach, and I know that's one of the most cherished areas in the city. I don't know if you have any additional words for our beloved Wollaston Beach.
Oh, I just know it's held such a special space for the entire, not just for the city of Quincy, but for the entire, greater area. It's been such a destination for so long. I love this photo. I love especially seeing how deep the beach is here. I often, find myself going by and just enjoy appreciating where the tide is and how high the water is or how low it is. And that's really inviting. So hopefully this summer, there's a lot of beach there that we can share. That's something that I did early in this quarantine, is go with my family to the beach, and you can still walk and have enough physical distance between you and other people so that it's safe and we can all enjoy this even in these crazy times when we need to have a little more space between us. I think beaches are a great place to do that. It's different than when we're hiking in the Blue Hills. You can be on a narrow trail and trying to figure out how to take a little bit of space away so that you're not getting too close. You don't have to worry about it the same way. You can see everybody coming from a long ways away and just really enjoy it. There couldn't be a better place to be right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing that you just mentioned too, about kind of the distancing aspect in these times. I know that they closed all the state parking lots for the state beaches, and Wollaston Beach is one of those. It doesn't mean that you can't get out and walk around if you live nearby. Still, I think, and this is a personal opinion, one of the best ways to kind of stay healthy during this time is at least just getting outdoors and kind of moving around and staying active, because that's just important for staying healthy all the time, but especially during these times. It's really good for your brain and your body. Another area I can't remember, but just further demonstrates all the coastal resources we got going on in Quincy. Got some nice birds. There's a lot of great birds that fly around Quincy, and bird watching is actually kind of one of my low-key favorite hobbies, and it's kind of becoming more so nowadays as nature begins to reemerge and people are staying indoors. And again, since Quincy has a lot of kind of transitional area between salt and freshwater, there's really a great variety of birds. Like I've seen some herons, and those might be a common sight in Quincy, but you can't really see those in a lot of places because herons kind of like that riverine, marshy area. So it's kind of unique. A lot of these species that live in Quincy are really unique, but I don't think that people realize that all the time because they're just kind of abundant, which is a blessing. Black's Creek on this blog, which is a really kind of unique area in and of itself. The fact that it kind of stretches so far inland and is tidal the whole way inland really gives you an opportunity to kind of access a lot of that unique habitat, like the marshes. And I know that Black's Creek is right across the street from my office, so it's kind of interesting, like some mornings coming in, the tide is low and there's no water in the creek at all. And some mornings the tide is high and the creek is completely full. So it's just really cool to kind of see something like that on a daily basis and being able to just observe, you know, the majesty of estuaries.
Yeah, and I know that there's a group of citizens who live near Blacks Creek that have worked really hard to clean it and to help preserve it so that it is this amazing resource for us all to enjoy. So I just want to take a moment and express some gratitude for the people who have been working to keep these spaces in its natural state. It's really a wonder to behold, and I'm grateful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is
that a red tail?
Hawk. Yes.
What? It's a red tail hawk, or a yeah.
So,
I know there's one of those that lives. I know of one that's there's a play area just off of Wollaston Beach where I regularly have seen a red tail hawk, but I know of a few others around the city too. We must have a bunch of red tails.
There it is, the heron. Beautiful.
That's a cool shot of a heron. I don't usually see them with their wings outstretched like that.
Yeah, usually they're just kind of slurping from the stream, not getting ready for takeoff, but this is a great photo.
Yeah.
And this bird,
what kind of duck is that?
It starts with a B.
A bee.
If you want to try and
is it a ballard? No, it's not a ballard. That would be a mallard.
A bufflehead. That's what it's called.
Wow. All right.
Blacks Creek from.
That looks like it could be a jigsaw puzzle or something. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, really in full bloom too here with the nice green cord grass. Looks like it's a little bit full. So you
looks like high tide right there. Yeah.
Definitely. And this is Blacks Creek frozen. So this little guy lives in Butler's Pond, which is actually a project that we're moving on right now, trying to dredge the pond and kind of install some stormwater best management practices around the pond to kind of keep it lively in the future. Basically, the issue right now there is that it's completely stormwater fed and there's no outlet. So over the years, it's just been accumulating sediment and all of the things that kind of cling to sediment because there's a lot of chemicals that are just really sediment-philic, if you will. And they all kind of just are at the bottom of the pond right now. So once we're able to dredge and restore the pond, there will be a lot more of these little guys swimming around and they'll probably be smiling a lot bigger.
Mm-hmm. Now that looks like, is that a kingfisher? No, what is that? That's not a bird that you see every day.
It is not.
I don't know what it is.
This is another one that I wish I jotted down the name of before we started this one.
Okay. Well, we're going to have viewers could be laughing at us in our need to go out and study our birds and our photos more. But
yeah, exactly. And this might be a fun time for viewers to kind of do some bird research themselves since we can't feed them all the answers due to my bad memory.
Exactly. This is good.
Yeah.
It reminds me, I know of a lake in Colorado that has an island that has a whole bunch of night herons. That's
what this is. This is a night heron.
All right. I pulled it out.
What it is.
Pat ourselves in the back. What a deal. Very cool.
Awesome. This is another Butler's Pond photo, just kind of showing a little bit more of the foreground with the flowers. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, that's pretty much as big as Butler's Pond is because you can kind of see the edge over here. Another little guy right here.
Turtle hanging out there.
Yep. Oh, this is Mount Wollaston Cemetery.
That looks unreal. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Oh. And there's that walking guide, actually, that I started taking a look at. That's on the library website. If you want to talk a little bit more about that, that was a really cool idea for some quarantine walking.
Sure. I would be happy, and we could actually do a whole other piece where we talk about all the local links that are available, and that actually gives me a good idea for a future conversation we could have where we could walk people through and just kind of point out all the different resources that are available. We've got a lot of historical links to like maps, old maps of the city, and we've got a walking tour of the Wollaston Cemetery that was put together with city funds a couple of years ago that really it would be great for people to print out or just carry on your phone and walk through, and it would be a great way to spend an afternoon enjoying a gorgeous time in a quiet, peaceful space. I try to say space and spot, I think, at the same time.
Could be considered both.
That's right.
I've got an osprey here.
On one of our osprey nests. I know a
Yep.
few years ago we had somebody asking us if we knew how to rebuild the osprey nest. Do you know who actually maintains this nest or any of the other nests around the city? Because I assumed that platform was built by somebody. The osprey didn't put that together.
Yeah, that would be impressive if they did. But I know that just from anecdotal knowledge that a lot of these were Boy Scout or Eagle Scout projects.
That makes sense.
But I'm not sure if they're regularly maintained at all.
Okay.
I know I've seen a lot of them just kind of out and about in the marshes and whatnot, and they get used clearly. And it's just really nice that there are so many of them.
Yeah.
All right, so we got another heron wandering around the marsh out here on a beautiful autumn day.
Mm-hmm.
Another heron. Like I said, they're so abundant in Quincy, but you'd never know that. If you weren't aware that these are kind of a marshy bird, there's not a lot of places around that you can see them, even in Massachusetts. So pretty special.
Yeah.
This is a
Look
skate.
at that. That skate does not look in its natural habitat. I think that would be much happier underneath some water.
Yeah, he looks a little upset. But he was on Wollaston Beach when this picture was taken. Some people fishing out by Squantum Point.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about Quincy is that you can kind of see all of like the iconic views of Boston from Quincy. So this I'm not sure who owns this, but is it like a natural gas National Grid kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that kind of stands out when you're driving on the highway. And
It certainly does.
yeah, you can see it from Squantum Point, and then you can see all of Boston from Wollaston Beach. So it's really cool. A lot of good views out there. Some folks fishing on Nut Islands, Town River Bay.
Okay.
So yeah, there's that whole other kind of like inland, sort of not totally, totally inland, but a little bit more estuary, but not as marshy area, if that's a good description of what Town River Bay is at all. An unidentified area, but some really nice goldenrod in the forefront here. That's a nice little late summer, early autumn plant that just happens to be my favorite.
That's a sumac right there. I know that
Sure
one.
is.
Yeah.
Again, another unidentified area with a pretty large sumac in the forefront.
It looks pretty late in the season too. That's really green. Have you ever had sumac tea before?
I have not.
I'm not sure if you can do it. I know there's poison sumac, so you obviously wouldn't want to do it with that.
Right.
But you take the flowers from the sumac and you can steep them in water and make it's a tea. I first had it actually out, I think, on Bumpkin Island. I was camping out there a number of years ago. I think that may have been the first time I had sumac tea, and especially if you haven't had anything sweet for a while, like let's say you've been camping or you ran out of sugar because you couldn't get it at the store anymore or whatever. The sumac flowers, it was almost, I think it was once upon a time similar to like a lemonade. It's kind of tart. I don't know. I'm sure it's an acquired taste, not for everybody, but I remember enjoying it when I tried it.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know you could drink it. And definitely, like you mentioned too, it would be very important to make the distinction of, is it poison or no? Because poison sumac is like poison ivy, but 10 times worse if you come into contact with it. So
it's also, if you're looking for, firewood or something, if you're having a fire, do not use poison sumac for your fire. That smoke is really toxic too.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Plant ID is another fun hobby that I would recommend taking up during quarantine time, especially. You can do it in your own backyard. There's a lot of once you start to learn about the plants a little bit more, it's kind of fun to track what comes up at one time, a certain time of the year. Like I know when I go to Blue Hills, it's kind of fun to see what's there in March and what's there in April and what's there in May. And if you can identify it, it kind of turns into a fun little game. As we spend more time outdoors, kind of make it more interesting by focusing on cool plants like sumac.
Yeah, for sure.
Another beautiful view. I see a little bit more sumac over here.
Yep.
A little sailboat out there.
Is that, what's the white? That's Queen Anne's lace, maybe?
Yes.
I'm guessing, yeah.
That's exactly what that is. And I think this is Peddix Island out here.
Yep.
Background.
And an awesome cloud formation over it that just kind of takes you to an awesome summer day.
This is off of Chickatawbut Road. I kind of liked the nautical flag action over here.
Very nice.
But yeah, it's really, I'm just constantly in awe of how all of these things are in Quincy, right? Like, wouldn't you think that some of the things that we looked at were like, I'm just going to go back to the sumac picture. Like, this looks like it could be maybe in the tropics if I didn't know. It does.
It's so lush. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And to couple that with some of the winter shots we saw earlier.
Right.
We've been pretty much all ocean and estuary here. We haven't even gotten to the mountains either. Like,
I know.
Yeah. It's really incredible the diversity we have. Yeah.
These are some.
Those are delicious.
Mm-hmm. That is just a scrumptious looking photograph.
It sure is. Some good ascorbic acid there. For folks who don't recognize that, we're looking at a rose hip.
Yes.
Yeah.
And these come up pretty much everywhere near a beach, right?
Now I have a question for you. I first thing I thought was just how delicious that looks. But is it okay if you're in a Quincy park and you see such a luscious rosehip like that? Is it okay to actually to have one? I mean, leave some for others, or is it best to leave them alone?
I would say that, it's probably cool to eat one. Don't mow down the whole bush just in case there's any natural critters out there that kind of use it as a food source. Yeah. And yeah, I guess just be conscious of the soil that it's growing in, because you don't want to eat something that looks like it's been growing in contaminated soil.
Okay, that's a good point.
But other than that, I mean, I'd say go for it. I actually was kind of embarrassed last summer when I was sitting on the side of the trail at Blue Hills in August, just like mowing down on some blueberries. And people were walking by me and they were like, what is this called? So yeah, feel free. I mean, that's what it's there for. Nature is food.
All right. Julie said we can enjoy the rose hips. Awesome. Yep. I will not feel guilty. That's great.
Now this is another pond, Sailor's Pond. Kind of same set of issues as Butler's Pond that I had mentioned earlier. So right now I'm actually working on getting some BMPs. And when I say BMPs, I mean best management practices for stormwater installed around the pond. So looking at this area over here, we're going to install something called an infiltration basin. So basically it'll just absorb a lot of the contaminated stormwater runoff before it gets to the pond. And then in some of the storm drains around the pond, we're going to actually put a filter that will filter out nutrients. And when I say nutrients, I mean nitrogen and phosphorus, which are the things that make algae bloom.
The pesticides that turn it green. Yeah.
Exactly. So just trying to prevent those problems from happening, even though, this will probably need to be dredged and fully restored at some point. So I've been talking to some of the neighbors around here and pretty excited about the potential for restoration here. And again, wildlife hangout here. See a little unidentified bird over here. Can't really tell what it is.
Yeah.
But these are some of the more inland gems, so kind of moving away from the ocean and toward the mountains.
Mm-hmm. But we can't get away from the ocean yet.
No, we can't get away from the ocean. So this, I believe, is in Squantum as you're driving up East Squantum Street.
That I would buy that. Yep.
Yep. This is Squaw Rock, which is, again, at the end of East Squantum Street. So these rock formations are super old and kind of a geological treasure. If you ever have a chance to check that out. And at low tide, there's a bit of a sandbar that kind of stretches out across the bay here.
That's cool. I've actually not been there yet. That's some place I had to go see.
Yep. And here's some more of those rock formations. This is called Pudding Rock because it's made up of all different kinds of rock. Some ducklings.
Yep. Those are mallards. Yep.
Yes, those are most definitely mallards.
Although I can't tell if they're mallards in the background. There's some other birds hanging out in the top right of that photo. Maybe more mallards, but I can't tell. But a family. We'll be seeing those soon.
Absolutely. Another heron looking kind of angry there.
Is that a great blue?
I don't think it's a great blue because it's just kind of
just a darker one. Okay.
Yeah, it's darker. The great blues are actually can also sometimes be white.
Oh, of course, right.
So, okay. Yeah. These are just kind of little cowlicks of marsh grass. I thought
that's an awesome photo.
Yeah. So just the kind of patterns of the tide moving in and out there.
We've been doing puzzles in my house, and some of these photos I could see like just turning into a puzzle and driving you crazy. Like that cowlick would be, or this one with the pebbles and the jellyfish. That's something.
Yeah, I was gonna say this could drive you nuts too.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, I think that this caption on this picture said that this was at Quantum Point.
Mm.
But just the colors of the rocks.
Yeah, that's
So
really
cool.
really vibrant.
And this is a moon jellyfish.
Which are cool, but I always get a little distressed when I see big jellyfish blooms because I know there's been some environmental studies that say as the temperatures are of the ocean are rising, we're seeing greater percentages. The jellyfish population is taking off, which is having then an impact on other fish populations and marine life. They're kind of an indicator species. I don't know about it, but
absolutely true. And another thing too that is a little bit more topical than jellyfish perhaps are kind of the increase in great white shark sightings.
Mm-hmm.
And people are kind of scratching their heads being like, well, there's just more and more of them and we can't go to the beach and it's scary to go to the beach. But the reality of why they're here is because the water is getting warmer and more of their prey is kind of starting to move here, the seals. And there will be a picture of a seal coming up later in the slideshow. But yeah, I mean, to them, it's probably a no-brainer. They're like, hey, we got enough food here. The water's warm enough. Let's come hang out by Cape Cod. So that's kind of why I think sharks will eventually be here to stay. So people might not want to hear that, but
can't really blame the wind for blowing. Just like you can't blame the sharks or the jellyfish. They're going to go and they're going to follow where there's opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Nice sunset. I believe this is from Pageant Fields.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is nice.
Another great. This is a great.
That blue. Is a great blue. Yes,
that's absolutely a great blue right there.
So cool.
Yeah. And there's the seal.
The promised seal. All right. I think that may be the last photo in our roll. Is it?
I believe that is true.
And we have a lot more to photograph clearly in the city because we talked about mountains. We know we have the quarries. I think that there's so many, even of what we've seen of the beaches, there's so many different angles. I find like every time I go to the beach, even though I could live a lifetime on a beach, and you can take a walk and see different things every time, which is obviously why people enjoy taking photographs of it because there's so many different ways to capture it. I love the look on this guy or gal. I don't know if you can gender a seal from this angle, yeah. But not that we have to. It's just an amazing creature and very cool.
Beautiful, fuzzy little friend.
I'm so grateful that Deb let us share these photos and let us share them with each other and with everybody who's enjoying this, hopefully. Julie, thank you so much for joining. We're going to have a lot of future conversations. The city is very lucky to have you to help us protect these spaces, as you were talking about the ways to protect some of our inland water sources. I think that's really important work, clearly, because we obviously have a great value in the diversity of landforms that we have and the natural wild spaces that it's great to, as we have these different times, take a moment to appreciate what's in our backyard, take a moment to really think about what's meaningful to us and how do we just treasure it. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And again, I'm glad that if you're watching this, that you're watching this, and this is actually the 50th Earth Day as well. So, taking anything that we said into consideration about maybe like going for walks, bird watching, however you can celebrate, just keep it in mind because, we've achieved a lot since the first Earth Day, but the work continues. And I think, it's really important that we all just kind of work together to preserve these beautiful places and make sure that future generations can enjoy them as much as we did.
What you said there definitely resonates with me. A lot of times we could be really wise to think not just what's in it for me, but what's going to be in it for my children's children. How do we think forward, think beyond our own individual lifespan? Something when we look at these spaces, the herons have, had generations and generations and are much longer than us. The trees that we saw photographs of, our lifespans are minuscule compared to the life of many of the trees that we see. Life, when we start looking at the land around us, is in a different time frame. Geologic time is very different than human time. And yet we are having an incredible impact. Something that I want to tell people about is there's a movie out that you and I were talking about the other day called Anthropocene, which is this kind of recognizing on a global scale that the Earth is now really entering into a period that is going to be defined by the impact of people on the planet. That's why it's called anthro from the same origin as anthropology. I'm not a Latin scholar, so I don't know, but I believe it means just because of people or associated with people. And usually geologic eras are epochs are talked about in reference to something else. This is the first epoch that is really defined by the impact of the planet, by the people living or by the creatures living on it, and those creatures being ourselves. So that film Anthropocene got a lot of nods for during the Oscar season, and is actually available for people can watch without using any of their existing credits on our Kanopy platform here at the library. And if people aren't familiar, Kanopy with a K, Kanopy, you can find a link on our website. Anytime you can go out there and view, and people have 7 credits a month to go and watch, and they have some amazing art videos. They've got some great courses videos. They've got an amazing collection of videos out there, movies and shorter pieces. But Anthropocene is a really recent film that they've made available that doesn't even count towards those 7 credits that people get a month. So I don't know if you've had a chance. I think you were telling me earlier that you were at a film screening, so you've seen clips of it, and that it's an amazingly produced film.
Absolutely, yeah. I would highly recommend it, especially if you've never really watched these kinds of environmental documentaries before, because there are a ton of them out there, but this one really kind of drives that point home of this is the epoch of, humans influencing the planet, and what does that mean for our present and our future?
Well, that certainly seems like something that we all need to just kind of sit with a little bit and think about what our individual roles are going to be, because the individual choices we make do make a big difference. And in fact, that's the only thing that can make a difference. We have to make choices about how we're going to live our lives. And that's what we're experiencing by choosing to stay at home and be safe and take care of each other. So hopefully we can take these lessons and expand to figure out how we can do better at taking care of each other and the world around us. So
absolutely.
Julie, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Clayton. Likewise.
All right.